Rudy Muro had just finished taking down a bull moose in the remote Alaskan wilderness. It was the kind of shot a hunter waits for all season. Perfect placement. A clean kill. The sun was dipping lower, casting gold across the treetops. The forest was quiet, save for the soft calls of ravens circling above. He knelt beside the carcass, his gut and knife in hand, beginning the long, messy work of breaking down the moose. His rifle was a few steps behind him, leaned against a spruce tree. It was always within reach, just in case. But on that day, those steps made all the difference. As he worked, focused on the hide, he felt it before he heard it. A pressure, a tremor, like the forest had taken a breath. Then came the sound, low, muffled, and fast. Heavy footfalls pounding against the forest floor. Rudy lifted his head. His eyes locked on movement between the trees. A blur of brown, power, rage. The grizzly wasn't stalking. It wasn't hesitant or curious. It was charging. There wasn't time to run, not even time to think. The bear was already on him. Rudy barely had time to register what was happening before the full weight of the grizzly slammed into him, knocking him sideways off the moose and into the underbrush. He hit the ground hard. Pain lit up his back as claws raked across him, tearing flesh, slicing deep. The bear was massive, easily over 600 pounds, and it was wild with fury, swiping and biting in a blur of movement. Rudy's instincts took over. His hand still held the knife. He didn't aim, he just reacted. He drove the blade upward as the bear lunged again, once, twice, maybe more. He didn't know where he was hitting. The blade skidded off ribs, fur, bone. The bear snapped at him, jaws gnashing inches from his throat. Rudy could feel its breath, hot and rancid, washing over his face. His arms shook with the effort of keeping it back. And then he hit something, software vulnerable. He drove the knife in hard, right under the jaw, into the neck. The grizzly reeled back, stunned, blood pouring from its mouth. It growled, a low, guttural, terrifying sound, and then did something Rudy didn't expect. It turned. It backed away, staggered once, then vanished into the trees. Gone. Rudy was left lying in the brush, his body torn, his shirt soaked with blood, some of it his own, some the bear's. The adrenaline kept him conscious. The pain was already setting in, hot and sharp across his back and sides. He tried to sit up. Everything hurt. His rifle was still leaning against the tree, too far, too late. He knew he couldn't stay there. If the bear came back, he wouldn't survive a second round. Rudy forced himself to move. Every step felt like fire. He stumbled to his gear, then toward his ATV, each movement a battle against the growing weight of shock and blood loss. He made it. Somehow. He got back to his camp and eventually to help. In the hospital, doctors worked to stitch him back together. Dozens of stitches, internal bruising, torn muscle. He'd lost a lot of blood. They told him he was lucky. They told him most don't walk away from a grizzly at that range, especially not with only a knife. Rudy didn't see it as luck. He didn't feel like a hero. When people asked how he survived, he didn't talk about technique. He just said, "I didn't win. I just convinced it the fight wasn't worth it." And that might be the truest thing any hunter's ever said about facing a grizzly. You don't beat a bear. You endure it, you survive it, if you're lucky. They say you can feel it when something's watching you. Carmelo Silvestro didn't believe that until the morning everything changed. It was early September 2024, the first week of elk bow hunting season in Alberta, Canada. The air was crisp, the sky washed with that faint blue you only see at sunrise in the backcountry. Carmelo, a bow hunter from Calgary, was deep in the forest near Madden, miles from any road, house, or human voice. He was hunting with a few buddies, but had gone off on his own that morning. Sometimes you cover more ground alone. Sometimes it pays off, but this time it nearly killed him. The forest was silent, almost unnaturally so. No birds, no wind, just the sound of his boots moving slowly over the undergrowth. He wasn't nervous. Carmelo had hunted in bear country before. He had his gear, bear spray, his bow, years of experience. But something still gnawed at him as he moved along the tree line. Then he heard it, a soft crunch, like a heavy foot pressing into pine needles. Then another. Then stillness. He stopped. Carmelo slowly turned his head, scanning the thick brush behind him. Nothing. His heart began to tap harder in his chest. That instinct, every hunter knows it, the one that tells you when you're not alone. He turned around fully. 10 yards away, almost perfectly camouflaged in the brush, stood a grizzly bear. Not just any grizzly. This was a full-grown sow, massive. Shoulders like boulders, fur dark and thick with summer strength. And just behind her, 2 cubs poking their heads out curiously from the foliage. Carmelo froze. No sudden moves, no sound. He knew the rules, but it didn't matter. The mother bear saw him. And in that moment, everything changed. She lowered her head, ears flat, and then she charged. The ground trembled. A blur of fur and fury barreled straight toward him. Carmelo barely had time to pull the bear spray from his belt. He aimed, sprayed. A cloud of orange mist filled the air, but she didn't stop. She plowed right through it like it was nothing. In less than 2 seconds, she was on him. The impact knocked Carmelo off his feet. He hit the ground hard. His bow went flying. The world became a blur of noise and pain. The bear's weight was crushing. Her claws raked across his shoulder. One slash, deep and fast, shattered his scapula. He felt something crack in his ribs as she pinned him down. He tried to protect his face. His arms moved on their own, covering his head. Instinct, survival. Her breath was hot, rancid. Her teeth snapped just inches from his cheek. The rage in her eyes wasn't mindless. It was precise, controlled. She was teaching a lesson. Stay away from my cubs. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. She pulled back. Carmelo didn't move. Couldn't. He lay still, hardly breathing, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The bear stood over him for what felt like forever. Then she looked him dead in the eyes, turned around, and walked away. Her cubs followed, vanishing into the trees. The forest swallowed them whole. Carmelo was alone again. He was alive, but just barely. Blood soaked through his camo. His left shoulder was destroyed, bones cracked, bruises forming across his chest. He was in shock, disoriented. But he knew one thing. He had to get out. Somehow, crawling, limping, staggering, he made it back to his friends. They called for help. Paramedics arrived by airlift. Carmelo survived, but the scars on his body told only half the story. The real scar was the memory. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, charging, roaring. But the story doesn't end there. Weeks later, wildlife officials tested DNA from Carmelo's clothing and matched it to another incident, one from 3 years earlier. In 2021, a University of Calgary professor named David Lertzman had been mauled and killed by a grizzly while jogging on a trail not far from this same area. Same bear, same mother, same rage. Since that fatal attack, the bear had vanished. She evaded detection for years until Carmelo. She was what officials call a defensive attacker, not hunting humans, not predatory, but when she felt her cubs were in danger, she became unstoppable. And Carmelo was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Later, in interviews, Carmelo said something that stuck with people. He said, "I believe my mom was watching over me." His mother had passed away just a year before, and somehow He believed she kept that bear from finishing the job. Some people call that superstition. Others call it survival instinct. Carmelo just calls it a miracle. Today, he's back home in Calgary, healing. His shoulder, still a mess. His ribs, still tender. But his spirit, stronger than ever. He still sees the bear in his dreams. Still hears her paws hitting the ground. Still feels that second when death was only inches away. But he also sees something else. The forest, the silence. And the reminder that out there, in the wilderness, we're never truly in control. Not the hunter, not the prey, just part of the cycle. I turned around, and the grizzly charged, a sentence Carmelo Silvestro will never forget. And now, neither will you. They say the most dangerous moment in a hunt isn't the stalk, it's not the shot. It's what happens after. When your adrenaline fades, when your focus shifts, when you let your guard down.